Our next guest is an author of a very interesting-looking book, which I have, and I'm probably going to devour this book because I understand it's made with tasty organic materials. Do I have his intro? Yes, I do. In this country, you are free to believe what you want, whether those beliefs are based on fact or not. Michael Specter says that when people choose to believe some things, regardless of scientific proof to the contrary, the outcome can be dangerous or even deadly. You find several examples of this in Michael's book, Denialism: How Irrational Thinking Hinders Scientific Progress, Harms the Planet, and Threatens Our Lives. Michael Specter, welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right. We have another guy who wrote a book about irrational stuff. Predictably Irrational?
By Dan Ariely.
Dan Ariely, you know him?
Yeah, I know the book.
You know the book? Are you guys like, cause it strikes me you're kind of in the same game of like, hey, wake up people, slapping us across the head and say, look at the facts, right?
Yeah, there are some similarities there. I think I tend to get more anxious about the effects of these things.
More anxious about the effects on society.
Of denialism, yeah.
Denialism. All right, let's start with, I've heard of Denial. That's a river in Egypt.
It is.
That's...
it's the number one beer seller in America. Denial sells a lot of liquor, boy.
And basically, my understanding of Denial is that I believe what I want to believe, regardless of the evidence to the contrary. I'm in denial. So denialism is this run rampant throughout society?
Yeah, basically. I think we've all been in denial from some time to time, and it's kind of normal. Something
What
bad
are you
happens.
in denial about right now?
Oh, so many things we don't have time to go into it.
So as long as it applies to you too.
Nobody is immune.
Denial. I am the expert. I tell you.
I'm from on high. Nobody is immune, and it's normal, and it's not so bad if you're upset about something and you don't want to face it for a little while.
It can actually be useful.
I think for a person, yeah, I think it's even necessary from time to time. When we ramp it up to a society, which is what denialism is, I think we run into some really terrible consequences, and I think we're seeing that in any number of areas.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple of things. I mean, the obvious one is global warming. You deal with that?
Not much. Sorry.
You don't believe in global warming?
I believe in it profoundly. I believe in it so much.
I believe in sarcasm.
Is it just because you don't think some people will be convinced?
Yeah, there are a couple of areas of denialism that I don't spend a lot of time on.
Okay.
And one of them is creationism, because my view is if you think that your ancestors rode around on the back of a dinosaur, I don't have that much that I can say that's going to change your mind. And on global warming, the evidence is so powerful, the accretion of data is so immense, that for people to sit here and say there isn't global warming, I'm not really sure what contribution I can make.
Okay, I'm going to translate that. You know you'd only be talking to wackos and you wouldn't have a substantive discussion if you took on those two things.
Yeah, that's sort of true.
Okay.
I kind of feel with the things that I took on, these are issues that are actually amenable to real discussion.
All right, and they're fascinating issues. One, a lot of people believe that vaccines are bad for you, no matter what you tell them. Give me an example.
Well, the most obvious example right now is we have H1N1 flu virus going around. 11 million doses of that vaccine have been administered in the United States without any reported serious adverse effects.
Not one.
Not reported. That doesn't mean there won't be one. I'm sure there will be. There will be several, but there are 11 million. On the other hand, we have 4,500 deaths, and we're going to have a lot more deaths. And a third of the United States or more says they won't have this vaccine.
So you can say 4,500 people have died from not getting the vaccine, and no one has died from getting the vaccine, and yet people, a certain group of people, will believe the vaccine is bad for you.
Well, what I would say is there's no question, if you look at the odds, the ups and the downs, which people almost never do, the vaccine is so remarkably better to have than not to have that it's not something one can even debate.
Well, I could debate that.
Well, let's do.
Being a person that I've never had a flu vaccine, I've never had a serious flu.
And you're cool. Well, let me tell you something. I met a woman at a party the other night, and she said she was pregnant, and I had written a story about the flu, and she came up to me and said, "So you're that flu guy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, I'm not going to get a vaccine." I said, "No, you wouldn't, because you're exactly the person who should." She said, "But I feel fine. I didn't get sick." And you know what? She's going to feel fine till she gets sick. And people feel unpregnant until they get pregnant if they don't use prophylactic.
When people do get a little, and every year my dad gets a flu vaccine. Every year he gets a little bit of the flu. Now, maybe it would be worse. I don't know. He's an older person than I am. But every year he gets a little bit of it. Every year I don't get a flu vaccine, and every year I don't get it. Isn't it putting a little bit of flu into you?
It's not putting a little bit of flu into you. It's putting antigens that have a flu virus into you. And one of the possible side effects, the worst side effect, is that you'll get about a day's worth of flu. I think death is worse than that. So
You know,
I'm going to go with the
this isn't
vaccine.
fair.